Are you ready? What's my name? What's my name? Say Kareem Ali. Say Kareem Ali. You're listening to
Are you serious?
the Hip Hop Debate Show.
Okay, so hear me out.
The official podcast of Kareem Ali. In about 2 seconds, Kareem Ali will begin to speak.
Your boy Dwight Howard.
Kareem Ali TV. This is the Are You Serious podcast. We discuss various topics through the lens of hip hop culture. And that topic today is hoops, man. We're talking basketball, we're talking NBA. I got my man.
Sports ball, nigga.
Let me change the Thriller shirt.
put the Magic Johnson there, so put the Mamba.
Let's get that in there.
Very fitting.
Okay.
Very fitting.
Okay. Fits pretty well. Okay, listen. Dwight Howard came out a few weeks ago, just a little after the Denver Nuggets won the NBA championship this year. Well deserved. Congratulations to the Denver Nuggets. Maybe could have been a few years ago had it not been for several injuries that they had dating back from 2020. They've never been healthy, but once they got healthy, they were able to close the deal behind the masterful play of Nikola Jokic, the Joker. Dwight Howard actually said that he felt like he was just as good, if not a better player than Nikola Jokic, a better center. What do you guys think about that? Is Dwight Howard right? Is Dwight Howard gotten a raw deal, or is Dwight Howard delusional for thinking that he ranks it with the likes of Nikola Jokic?
I'm going to sit over here and continue to eat strawberries because to both you and Dwight Howard, I say, are you serious? Because how? I think Dwight Howard might be a little salty right now because nobody really wants to give him a deal, especially not the kind that he's looking for at this point in his career. And it was a time when Dwight Howard was saying he was the best player like in the league, and he was like up there with Elijah and he was demanding that the offense go through him when he was in Orlando and in Houston. And I think that the game evolved, especially for the big man. One of the last things Kobe did, rest in peace, was he put together this brilliant expose on ESPN called The Arc. It was talking about how centers and big men were starting to dominate, not just in the paint, but from the arc down. And how the game for the big man expanded, and the skill set expanded in the last 10 years. And for players like Dwight Howard, players like who's the guy I'm forgetting about who used to be really prominent when he was with the Clippers?
DeAndre Jordan, maybe?
DeAndre Jordan. Players like that who were really like typical old school style skill set big men. The game kind of left them behind in this era because big men begin to become stretch fives and point fives. And so I feel like that evolution left players like Dwight Howard really stagnant, and that they could only still play that traditional way and the way the game evolved. And it's not saying that kind of big man isn't still valuable, but it's not the centerpiece of a team anymore. It's not. They're not able to change the nature of how a team can defend them the way they used to. Like Ben Wallace used to make it very difficult for teams to contest in the East with the Pistons because of his presence. Where then you can negate that now because of how other big men make that matchup so difficult.
I'm going to give you some pushback.
And a number of other factors.
I'm going to give you some pushback, but I'm going to let Jay Swan go first. I have an alternate perspective. Jay Swan, what do you think about this topic?
Well, like you said, are you serious? Like Dwight Howard was, I would say, he was a top 3 player in his prime, like around 2009, arguably with, Dwayne Wade, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. Yeah, top 5 around that range. But better than Nikola Jokic? I don't know, man. Like, nah. I want to say that because, the center position, would you say it evolved in a way?
Well, basketball evolved. Yeah, the
Yeah,
center
it
positions definitely
evolved with
evolved.
the game. I mean, like Jokic has revolutionized the center position for this era. Like he's like a giant white European Magic Johnson.
Yeah,
Like
and
just his passing ability alone.
and I think he was the only center besides Wilt Chamberlain to ever lead the league in assists. So
Not to mention his ability to shoot the three, like it's crazy.
Yeah, like he could just shoot the three. Anthony Davis was having a hard time against him. He is currently the best player right now, hands down, I think.
I mean, I would make some arguments for Embiid, but
listen. In 2 seconds, Kareem Ali will begin to speak. Look, I think that Dwight Howard has a point and a right to feel a way that he can compete with a Nikola Jokic. I think that a lot of times we suffer from recency bias. We just saw Nikola Jokic, the Joker, win the NBA championship. We just saw him dominate the Western Conference playoffs. So a lot of we forget what Dwight Howard was in the late 2000s. We forget that Orlando team, he dragged them into the NBA Finals. And along the way, he beat LeBron James in doing so against that Cleveland Cavalier team, who they were trying to push to get to the finals to meet against Kobe Bryant and the Los Angeles Lakers. It's not the Dwight Howard's fault.
He had a bevy of shooters around him on that
team.
He
did. I'm not saying you have to have players. You have to have a team to win. They matched up well. It's not the Dwight Howard's fault that he ran into Kobe Bryant in the NBA Finals and was outplayed there. But he got them there. See, the problem with sports is we often value offensive players over defensive players. We do it in every sport. I would argue that Dwight Howard is as dominant on the defensive end as Nikola Jokic is on the offensive end. Now, he's not as skilled of a basketball player. Dwight Howard is more like he would have done better in his career if he had focused on being more of a garbage man, focusing specifically on defense, rebounds, picking up the trash where it's left off, running the floor. He can score in the post, even though it was often robotic. But in that time period, if you threw it to Dwight Howard in the post because of his athleticism, he was a threat because the defense would sink around him, which would leave a lot of his shooters open that he would be able to hit, like Hedo Turkoglu and Peja Stojakovic, all those guys, Rashard Lewis. They were shooting over the smaller players that Cleveland had, and Cleveland was actually one of the best defensive teams in the NBA that year. They won like 66 games in the regular season. They weren't a bunch of bums. They just didn't match up well with Orlando. Orlando was better. But it was Dwight Howard and his play in that series and throughout that playoffs that led the Orlando Magic to the NBA Finals. And it was his play that made Orlando in a 4 or 5 year span threats in the Eastern Conference. Dwight Howard, it was a time period where if you came around him, your ability to score was lessened because of intimidations, because of his dominance on the boards, and just his mere presence in the paint and his ability to cover ground. Dwight Howard definitely has an argument. He just wasn't able to get it done. Nikola Jokic didn't run into Kobe Bryant in the NBA Finals. Dwight Howard did. And I think that he could very easily have won an NBA championship if things had gone different. He was dominant in that time period. We got to give credit where credit is due. I'll say another thing. Even in the NFL, we always say that the best football player of all time is Tom Brady. And greatness is a measure of accomplishments. But in general, we usually go to a quarterback when we're measuring that. Before that, it was Jerry Rice. We looked at a wide receiver or offensive player. But why never Deion Sanders, who not only could play multiple positions in football, he played wide receiver and cornerback, but he was so dominant on the defensive end that people wouldn't even have a scheme to throw it to his side of the field because they were fearful. The only time they threw it on the side of the field that Deion Sanders was on, talking Coach Prime, is if he was lined up against Michael Irvin, if he was lined up against Jerry Rice, and maybe later on some of the other talents that were in the NFL, or when he started to slip. So why wouldn't Deion Sanders or Ray Lewis or Bruce Smith why wouldn't these guys be considered or have a argument to be considered Lawrence Taylor to be
Reggie
the greatest
White
football player? Exactly. They were just as dominant in what they did and specializing as the guys on offense. But we value offense because offense does what? Sell tickets. But what does defense do? Defense wins championships. That's my argument for Dwight Howard.
Well, you make a strong argument about his defensive prowess.
That's all he got.
Now,
so what the fuck else I'm gonna do?
That's kind of my point. But even at the same time, to make a direct comparison to someone who had a similar skill set and was more dominant, I would argue in that way, even at a more diminished size, much more diminished size. And this is why I would say Dwight Howard was not a top 75 player all time, because his dominance was too brief in comparison. Someone who did a very similar thing.
He hurt his back.
I would say Dennis, the reason, right, and then we don't put Terrell Davis in the NFL Hall of Fame because of shortened period because of injury as well. So that plays into it. That's a factor. But I think that the difference between top 75 and not top 75 is Dennis Rodman is top 75 because he was dominant in the same kind of way, with the same kind of skill set at only 6'5". Granted,
Dennis Rodman
he dominated for longer.
Dennis Rodman is 6'9", probably closer to 6'7", but he's listed as 6'9". Dennis Rodman was a better player than Dwight Howard because Dennis Rodman was also a perimeter defender. And he also could defend the post. But Dwight Howard...
And more dominant for a longer period as well. So
I would say that's
the difference between top 75 and not top 75.
So you're telling me... Whoa, wait a minute. So Dwight Howard has 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards. And probably could have 5 or 6, depending, because he finished in the votings very, very high. All the NBA defensive teams. That's a lot.
But are you serious, though? Are you serious? Because...
So listen, wait a minute. You talk about top 75. You're telling me
there's been a whole lot of really great players who played in the NBA.
You're telling me that Damian Lillard belongs to the top 75, but Dwight Howard doesn't?
Absolutely.
You're telling me that Anthony Davis. You're telling me that Anthony Davis at this point belongs to the top 75 over Dwight Howard and what he's done when they made this list.
By just
I don't know. He's not healthy enough most of the time.
Anthony Davis is better than Dwight Howard, bro.
He's an all-time talent. Is he a better defensive player? His skill set is better.
He's nearly as good. Nearly as good.
But what I'm saying, career-wise,
nearly as good.
Career-wise,
better.
Has Damian Lillard or Anthony Davis done more in their career than Dwight Howard did in his career?
Anthony Davis can defend every single position.
Yes, he can. And he's a better rebounder.
And
he's arguably a better. He's arguably is just as good as a rim protector as Dwight Howard too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's almost as good as Dwight Howard at the one thing Dwight Howard's great at.
But Damian
Lillard,
he's
a better inside scorer than Dwight Howard.
Damian Lillard's one of the greatest scorers in history. He's absolutely top.
Dwight Howard is one of the greatest defensive players in history. Damian Lillard has done nothing in his career. He's put the ball in the basket.
But again, I have to go back.
He hasn't done it.
I have to go back to time span. Damian Lillard has a much longer time span of being that high caliber player than Dwight Howard did.
But Dwight Howard, when you talk about winning, what has Damian Lillard ever done in a playoff situation to get his team out of the first or second round?
We gotta look at stats.
It's not just the game isn't just stats. You have to watch the games. Dwight Howard has a high defensive IQ. Dwight Howard dragged his team to the NBA Finals. Damian Lillard has never done that.
Different roles,
he's never
different
done
responsibilities, different situations.
I don't know. I think
the East was a lot weaker in the time span that Dwight Howard did that.
That's true. The East was very, very weak. It was very weak, but but I just feel like I don't know, man. Dwight Howard, he should still be in the NBA today. As a matter of fact, of the Lakers should have never cut Dwight Howard or JaVale McGee.
I agree.
Because they were the reasons that they won the championship in 2020.
Yeah, that ruined that roster the following
year. All this talk about the evolution of the center position, the Lakers won it by playing old school, pounded out basketball, by having size inside. In fact, I would argue that if Dwight Howard played on the Lakers last season, I'm not saying they would have beat Denver, but it would have been a closer series because Anthony Davis wouldn't have had to get roasted by Nikola Jokic so much. He could have focused on offense and did what he was doing in the playoffs in the whole long, which was eating in the first 2 rounds. Once you matched up with Jokic, it became a totally different situation. Now, if you have JaVale McGee or Dwight Howard to throw against Jokic, you give him different looks. It may slow him down just a little bit so that Davis and these guys or the Lakers can kind of get off. It changes the matchup scenarios. Dwight Howard should still be in the NBA today. He gets a bad rap. I'm not even saying he's better than Jokic, but the NBA, even for all the talk of the evolution of the centers, Jokic and Embiid, well, Jokic does, when Jokic scores, and he's so effective because he will take it down low. He will pound you out on the post. Pause.
He will.
He will score inside. The same thing that Dirk Nowitzki did in 2011 as opposed to 2006. Dirk Nowitzki, before he wouldn't take it to the basket, he would settle for jump shots at 7 feet. But in 2011 finals, he would put it on the floor and drive it down your throat and dunk it with two hands on that Miami Heat defense. He didn't do that in 2006. The thing that Joel Embiid does not do, he focuses on shooting from the perimeter. And when you do stuff like that, you're making it very easy on the defense. You're making it easy for them to guard you. Embiid needs to take his big ass down low on the block and play some good old school basketball. Give me some Moses Malone out here. It's crazy. I don't care about the evolution. At the end of the day, basketball is basketball, and it selects out for height. If you got that type of size, when it comes time to score, when it comes time in the playoff time to put the ball in the basket, all that shooting from the perimeter, when you're 7'3" and dribbling on the outside, you're not putting the pressure on the defense the way you need to do. You have to get high percentage shots on the inside. For all the talk of the Golden State Warriors being a jump shooting team, a lot of those championships was won because they were able to drive to the paint. They got a lot of points in the paint. They protected the paint well, and they drove to the paint well. And that allowed them to be able to shoot from distance because they were driving and kicking a lot of times. You have to attack the paint. And if you got size in the paint, it's always going to help when it comes winning time, when it comes time in the playoffs. It's just the way it kind of goes. It's basketball is basketball.
I largely agree with pretty much all of that. My only pushback overall would be that I would say Dwight Howard is top 83, 70, not top 75.
Top 70, bro.
It's a lot of great players throughout the annals of the NBA.
I can't put him over Jokic.
Okay, no, don't put him over Jokic. But when you start naming your top centers of all time, when you get to like number 8 or number 9, it's going to start to get shaky. And you're going to have to put Dwight Howard in there somewhere. I promise you. He's going to be a good time. Start naming your centers right now.
They had Moses Malone already.
Right. I think Dwight will hit that top 10. I think he'll be at number 10 if you really think about it.
So humor me. Let's just start naming them. Kareem
Abdul-Jabbar. He might have to be in the top 10.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Let's go Wilt Chamberlain. Let's go Bill Russell. Let's go Shaquille O'Neal. Let's go Moses Malone. Let's go Patrick Ewing, David Robinson,
Hakeem Olajuwon.
Olajuwon really is much higher than that. This is no order. Kareem might be number 1. Olajuwon may be the most skilled center of all time, followed by Shaq. You know what I'm saying? So we got Olajuwon, Robinson, Ewing in that era. And then number 9, let's go Jokic. I don't know yet, but let's go.
Jokic is in there. I say Jokic is in there.
He's doing some video game number type shit, even though I think the game has they changed the rules in such a way where a lot of these numbers are inflated, but that's another topic.
But you are missing the name too, Kareem. You are missing somebody.
Who's the name I mentioned? Missing.
Tim Duncan.
Okay, as a center?
He's forward.
Tim Duncan, he did play center.
Okay. See, I consider Tim Duncan a center. I think that they played him at power forward because he got more credit at the power forward position historically.
Right. And most people will argue he might be the greatest power forward of all time.
Yeah, but if you put Tim Duncan at center, then what you just said, he comes in at like number 10. Because maybe 7 or 8. Maybe if you put him over Moses Malone, maybe if you don't want to, you know what I'm saying? Because he's won 5 championships.
He's up there.
But he's not as high on the center list as he is on the power forward list. But okay, so even if I put Tim Duncan, if I don't put Tim Duncan in the top 10 centers, then Dwight Howard's got to go there. If I do add Tim Duncan, then Dwight Howard's going to be number 11.
What about Alonzo Mourning?
He's not as good as Dwight Howard, bro.
You don't think so? No, as a defensive center?
No. Dwight Howard was. How many defensive player years does Alonzo Mourning have?
I gotta check that. I gotta check that one out.
Alonzo Mourning.
I mean, even Ben Wallace dominated for a stretch similar to Dwight Howard
center. The Ben Wallace was dope. I thought Dwight Howard had a little more athleticism. Probably could do a little bit more on offense than Ben Wallace. So Dwight Howard scored 22, 24 a game. 22, 24.
I mean, what?
So Alonzo wasn't
often. In the 90s? Do you want to argue Bill Walton?
Yeah, Bill Walton, a short span, but Bill Walton is a top 75 player.
He should be because of what he did in college.
Dwight Howard
UCLA.
Yeah, he's top 75.
But Bill Walton gets a lot of credit for what he did in that story franchise.
I mean, are we just completely leaving George Mikan out of it? I mean, I know that's before our time, but
I mean, George Mikan should get
dominated the
credit for
league
what
in
he
his
did.
era.
He won five straight championships, I think, with the Minneapolis Lakers. But at that point, are we getting to like, you know, is this the greatest list? Is it who's better than who, or is it just political? I think the Dwight Howard was
your era.
Okay, I'll give you that. But I think the Dwight Howard is getting a bad rap for maybe some political issue, or maybe he pissed someone off in the upper echelon of NBA circles, because he should still be in the NBA right now. Why is he not in the NBA?
Where does Bill Laimbeer land?
Bill Laimbeer shouldn't rank. He was great. He was a very good basketball player, and he taught Dennis Rodman everything he knows. But from a talent standpoint, I don't think he will measure up against the names that we just mentioned. But and head to head, he might outplay some of those guys. You just never know.
And he might foul the shit out of a lot of them.
Yeah. You're gonna foul them all very hard. And he was the progenitor of the stretch center, because it was Bill Laimbeer and really those Detroit Pistons teams that introduced small ball with the 3-guard lineup of Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, and Vinnie Johnson. It was Dennis Rodman's versatility, being able to defend almost every position. He played against Magic, Bird, and Michael, defending them fairly well. And then Bill Laimbeer was stretching the floor, shooting 3-pointers at the center position when not many people were doing it in that era. So he gets credit, but Dwight Howard's got to be somewhere in there. But I do think he should crack the top 75, because when you talk about the 2000s in basketball, you start to name centers, Dwight Howard's at the top of that list.
Well, when you say we just demonstrated that he might not be in the top 10. And so if you're saying out of the 75 players ever, at least 10 of them are centers, that leaves 65 slots. You're going to have at least 15 or so guards and point guards, probably up to 20. You're going to have at least 10 to 15 small forwards.
And it still should be a slot for Dwight Howard and all that shit you just said.
You're still going to have at least 10 to 15 forwards, power forwards.
I'll give Dwight Howard
at least like maybe 5 more slots left. I don't know if he
and one of them shouldn't belong to Dwight Howard.
Number 80. That's not bad.
Not if Connie Hawkins has a spot. Not if George Irvin has a spot. There's so many great players. Oscar Robinson's going to have a spot. George Gervin, I mean.
Isn't he a top 75
so many players. Dennis, the Iceman? Absolutely.
Yeah, he should be.
The Iceman is top 75. So I'm saying there's so many slots that are already guaranteed. You know what I'm saying? And when we say some of these names that are automatics, they're probably like ranked 61 through 52. Like they're not even the top 30. So it's like, where does this extra magic?
They're trying to pay homage to people that were legendary in different eras. But I think that you have to pay some homage to Dwight Howard for what he did. You start to look at the numbers, the all-time blocks, what he did on the offensive and defensive boards, and then just his position defense, which just doesn't come up in stats. His position defense and ability to cover ground. I don't think he was as good as Akeem Olajuwon on the defensive end or anything like that.
Is Alonzo Mourning a top 75 player?
No, and he shouldn't be.
Why not?
Because he wasn't as good.
Oh,
what did Alonzo Mourning? Alonzo Mourning had a few good years. He was a 20-10 guy early on. But by the time Alonzo Mourning, he could never lift his team into the NBA Finals. He couldn't do that. Alonzo Mourning, when he won a championship, he was brought back to back up Shaquille O'Neal in 05 and 06.
Is Larry
but
Johnson
he was also a good representative?
No, Larry Johnson's not top 75. Why should he be? We love Grandmama, but he didn't do anything that warranted him being on the top 75.
I feel like you're underestimating Alonzo Mourning, my friend.
I'm not. He was an undersized sitter. He was very good in the 90s, I felt. But I don't feel like he was never as good as the top 3 or 4 centers from that time.
You're saying players like that on top 75, then maybe Dwight Howard does sneak in, perhaps. But I don't know. If you really look at the list all the way from top to bottom, it may be hard to find somewhere.
I feel like he's got to slip in there somehow. Pause. For what I heard.
You said a lot of things that were positive during the sports ball,
okay.
sports balls
It's easy to
discussion.
say. One thing I remember like a few years ago, someone came out and exposed Dwight Howard and called him a 6'11" bottom, and I died and came back to life.
I mean that reminds me.
Maybe he shouldn't be in the top 75.
Is Chris?
No comment.
Is Chris?
Chris Webber?
It's not Chris. Is
Chris Webber's a Hall of Fame.
75?
He's a Hall of Famer.
He's
He's
top
not a top 75.
Absolutely.
He's not a top. He didn't make the top 75.
Chris Webber's not
Chris
top
Webber
75.
should have made that top
I don't think
75.
so.
That's a
He'll be in the next batch. I mean, I think Chris Webber's
If Chris Webber's not top 75, Dwight Howard absolutely is not.
I mean,
top 75.
Dwight Howard dragged his team to the NBA Finals, bro. You got to give credit.
But
Chris Webber nearly
Chris Webber
did,
took this team
but he
to
didn't.
The, Western Conference
Chris
he
Webber,
ran into Kobe early. He ran into Kobe early because he was in
Chris
the West.
Webber, every big shot that you had, Chris Webber passed that shit off to Mike Bibby. He did not want the ball because he still had a mental block going on from what he did in Michigan.
Timeout.
He did not want the rock at the end of games for Chris Webber. If you took Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal, added them together and divided by 2, the average of that would be Chris Webber. Chris Webber was a monstrosity, but he had a mental block at the end of games. And he didn't want.
So if Chris Webber doesn't get a slot in the top 75, I can't in any conceivable way give Dwight Howard one.
Bro, Dwight was able to get to the show, and he performed well in the finals.
Out of these, though, there's an asterisk because you don't have to play Kobe to get there.
Right.
Okay.
And like Chris Webber kind of, and injuries killed Chris Webber's career, so like it's not his fault.
He had a good run, man. He had a good run. I think
arrogance killed Dwight Howard's career.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest Dwight Howard fan. I just think it's kind of disrespectful to not give him the credit he deserves when he was better than a lot of people gave credit for.
To not put Chris Webber in the top 7.
Well, like you said, there's so many people on those slots. Where do you put them in there?
Exactly.
Are you taking Connie Hawkins and George the Iceman Gervin off for Chris Webber?
You can't.
Why can't you?
They were the Jordans of their day.
Can we take a Pistol Pete Maravich off?
No way.
Is Elvin Hayes in the top 75? I'm not sure.
John Stockton, Karl Malone.
Dominique Wilkins just got into the top 75 because he didn't make it into the top 50.
That's blasphemy.
Which was ridiculous.
That's blasphemy.
Dwight will be on the next go around.
But how do you put if you have Dominique Wilkins being in the bottom 25, then there's no way Dwight Howard hit this spot.
Dominique Wilkins also played no defense. In fact, this statue has Dominique Wilkins in a defensive stance, and Larry Bird was like, "That's unrealistic because he never played no defense in his life."
Yeah, this should be a ball in his hand. No, pause.
Pause.
He's Dominique Wilkins, the human highlight reel, not the human defensive reel. You need to have a ball.
Well, like the whole point I'm trying to make.
I mean, Dwight Howard barely played any offense though. So
no, he played it. He wanted to play. That's the problem. That's the problem with his game.
He was a 20 and 10 guy.
When he was traded to the Lakers, when he went to the Lakers, of Dwight Howard had focused on defense, and they didn't bring Mike D'Antoni in to coach them. Let's say they brought Phil Jackson back. If they'd allowed Pau Gasol to handle the offense from the post position, and Dwight Howard just focused on defensive rebounding, and they played a similar style that they did when they were winning championships, I would argue that the Lakers, especially if Kobe didn't get injured, might have actually either went deep into the playoffs and maybe played Miami in the finals, because they would have fared better that way than Dwight Howard trying to demand that I want the ball in the post, and he thought he wanted to be Shaquille O'Neal 2.0. He just never really had that talent. I never seen anybody that worked with Patrick Ewing on Orlando and then went to work with Akeem Olajuwon and learned nothing. And they didn't even want to work with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in L.A. when Jabbar wanted to help him, and he didn't want to learn from the drill. So I have issues with Dwight Howard.
You just accurately laid out the sound argument for why he is not top.
I have issues with Howard, but what I'm saying is we give credit to offensive players and we don't give the same credit to the other side of the ball, which is the side of the ball that's most responsible for winning championships.
Dennis Rodman is top 10.
As he should be. But Dennis Rodman also has
five.
Dennis Rodman has 5 NBA championships.
Because of his defensive prowess there.
Damian Lillard has nothing. He doesn't play defense. Jokic doesn't even play
Damian Lillard
defense.
Has offensive prowess.
No defense, but we're giving credit to that. We're giving credit to that. That also he's never been to an NBA. How far has Damian Lillard actually gotten in the playoffs? He about to be Tracy McGrady in a minute.
You got to have the supporting cast. It's Tracy McGrady top 75.
As a talent, he is. I'm not. I think he made it. I think he made it. And I have to look at it again. He made the list. I believe he made the list.
You know,
Tracy McGrady underachieved.
Is Anthony Hardaway top 75?
I don't think he's on there. He might be. He should. Maybe he should.
I thought he was on there.
He might be on there.
McGrady was.
He might be on there.
Vince Carter. Is Vince Carter top 75?
I think Vince Carter made it as well.
So where's this slot that gets dropped for Dwight Howard? Don't see it. I mean, Dennis Rodman gets there because of his defensive prowess, the same way Damian Lillard is there because of his offensive
Damian Lillard is slot, bro. Damian Lillard doesn't.
John Stockton is there because of his passing prowess.
D. Lillard doesn't belong on that list, bro. Not over Howard.
I think he does.
D. Lillard doesn't belong on that list, bro. There's no way in the world. You can't convince me Damian Lillard. I would
rate him higher than Dwight Howard again because there's what are you great at? That gives you that credit, and how long?
I don't think Damian Lillard's ability had any direct impact on him winning. He hasn't won anything. He hasn't won anything. He hasn't won anything.
But again, it's a team sport. You gotta have the team. You gotta have the team. It's not an individual sport.
He could score.
Tennis.
The most relevant thing that Damian Lillard ever did was embarrassing Russell Westbrook in the playoffs. Maybe he's been to the second round.
He was the one that sent Dwight Howard home. Him and James Harden. Exactly. He was like, bye-bye.
Exactly.
Dwight Howard wasn't in his prime at that point. This is post-back injury. Pre-back injury, Dwight Howard was the best center in the NBA. Damian Lillard has never been the best player at his position in the NBA at any point in time.
He's been top 3 or 2.
Yeah, but Dwight Howard has been number 1. Number 1 in his position.
Yeah, I just don't see a spot where you can plug him in.
We probably have to go down and look at the list to see. But the problem with that is you have to give credit to people who dominated in their particular eras. So even if you're a better player than some of those players, it's hard to just swap them out. You know what I mean?
Better player is subjective.
Well, the game does evolve. Sometimes people get better. Like we go back.
Sometimes centers learn how to shoot and handle the ball and pass.
Then they forget how to defend. They forget how to defend and rebound.
Look at big time like Chris Bosh.
Joker. He does it all.
Yeah, except for play defense.
Not Embiid. He does it all.
Embiid plays defense. Joker doesn't.
Joker doesn't necessarily play.
He doesn't play defense. No, he's not.
Now, when we look at Giannis, we're looking at Giannis as a primarily power forward, right?
I look at him as a slasher. I look at him as a small forward. I don't look at him as a power forward.
Yeah, he's only 6'6" when you're doing that.
Giannis
is 6'6". He just jumps extremely high.
Giannis is 7 feet, bro. He's a 7-footer. What are you talking about?
No, Giannis he's a 7-foot small forward.
He's a 7-foot small forward. Or power forward. I'm not really sure. I hadn't thought about it.
He might be 6'8", 6'8", 6'7".
He's about 7 feet, bro.
And like
he's not
when he first got,
he's 6'11" with long arms.
he does the long arms for sure. But
he's pretty strong guy.
He's way bigger than 6'6", bro. It's way taller than 6'6". Michael Jordan was 6'6". Giannis is not 6'6". Cut it out, Vic. You know better. Stop.
I don't know. He's not a.
He's a 7-footer, bro. He's a 7-footer.
We mentioned someone mentioned Joel Embiid.
Like, what about
Joel Embiid is top 2 in the league right now among all players.
I'm gonna have to disagree.
Why?
I think he's either top 10, but not top 5
10
or top
What?
3.
Are you
I
serious?
Well,
can-
he just finished number 2 in the
I can name
MVP
it.
voting. So who's better? Who's better than Joel Embiid?
Right.
As far as like the
I mean,
position,
didn't he win the MVP this past year?
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I think Giannis is better. I think Jokic is better. I still think Kevin Durant is better. I think Jimmy Butler is better. Jimmy
Butler
Buckets.
is not better than
He's not better. He's not better than Embiid.
He is.
I like him better. I respect his heart. You're a Miami Heat fan, so you're seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. You're biased.
I think Anthony Davis is better. I think Jason Tatum is better.
Jason Tatum. Okay.
Jason Tatum.
You're right. Giannis is 6'11".
And
so I don't think most of those players you named are better than Jokic. Yeah, the Anthony Davis thing, he's just too inconsistent for me. He should be better.
So is Joel Embiid.
When he's healthy, he's top 3.
Joel Embiid. Here's the thing. They want to say
they both have injuries.
I can see the media will try to create this narrative of like Anthony Davis is soft, but Joel Embiid, he's super unavailable in the playoffs. He's really unavailable. I will not have that.
They both might be the same. They both might be the same level of Twinkie Philly. I give it.
And nobody.
I mean, listen, today's NBA.
I still think Steph Curry is better than Joel Embiid.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, but I don't know if they're playing better. Joel Embiid is just more valuable to his team's success as he is the MVP. He's the reigning most valuable player.
I don't want to sound like a hater, but they should have gave it to Jokic.
Maybe so,
I think Joel Embiid is super overrated. I think he's overrated.
I don't think he's overrated. So I think that Joel Embiid should have won MVP the year before, and Jokic should have won it this year. I think it should be flip-flop. I think Jokic won it last year, Embiid won it this year. Embiid won it this year as a payback for him being, in my opinion, robbed the previous season.
Like a makeup call.
Yeah, like a makeup call. Jokic, that's my opinion. But I see your point, though. And maybe he's not the second best, because Giannis, to me, could be the best or second best player in the NBA.
Right.
Easily. Almost every year he plays. So
I'll
give you that.
I'll give Embiid top 10 or number 9. At least.
I don't know if I would rank him that low, but I hear what you're saying. But Giannis probably is the second best player in the NBA, and he may have a chance to prove that he's the best. But what Jokic has been doing, for people to say that Magic and Bird couldn't play in the NBA today, look at Jokic and his game and how lethargic he is moving and how dominant he is, how he dominates the game with his passing and all-around play. And that's Magic Johnson and Larry Bird.
So I have to stand here today as what I was when I was born, a black man.
Your racism bounces off me, I'm bulletproof. Your prejudice gets deflected, I'm bulletproof. Your hatred can't penetrate me, I'm bulletproof. Our minds can't be shackled no more, nah, we know the truth. Yeah, from the spot that Malcolm stood, looking out through the window, I'm looking out over my hood.